Hello, everybody. Welcome back to FX Street. My name is Akash, and today we're going to be taking a look at Bitcoin and discuss if the 2023 rally is at an end or if it's going to continue. But before we get into that, please make sure to hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. Give us a follow on Twitter at FXSCrypto, and if you enjoy the content that I put out, make sure to give me a follow as well at Mangyako with a zero at the end. Right. So without further ado, let's get into Bitcoin. So here's how the rest of this recording is going to flow. I'm going to do a top-down analysis of Bitcoin starting from the weekly, move down to the 3-day, look at multiple scenarios for Bitcoin on a daily time frame, and then look at the historical returns for Bitcoin and then conclude my take. Right. So on the weekly, before we get into what's happening here, I just want you to understand that the market structure is very important in trading markets. Right. So what is a market structure? A market structure is when uh, during a bull market or bear market, the market structure looks something like this, right? This is a bull market. Price produces higher highs and then it produces higher lows, right? During a bear market, the opposite of that is true. Price produces lower lows, right? And then price produces lower highs. This is a market structure, right? And for a shift in market structure to happen, two things need to happen, right? All of this looks very simple and very beginner, but bear in mind, like just bear a little bit of patience. Everything is going to come full circle, right? So during an uptrend, price needs to produce higher highs. But for a shift in market structure, what needs to happen is price needs to break down a key support or key low, right? Actually, let's do it like this. It needs to break down a key low and then it needs to produce a lower high. Okay. So there are two conditions. Price needs to produce a lower low and then it needs to produce a lower high. That's when you can confirm that there is the trend, that the main trend is exhausted and now that we're going to get a counter trend or a reversal. Okay, so going back to this chart here, Bitcoin price has been in an uptrend on a weekly time frame. Right? It formed a bottom in the last quarter of 2022, and then since then it has produced higher low, it has produced higher highs. Right, the last higher high was produced in July when Bitcoin price produced a weekly candlestick close above its previous highs at 30,616. But it gets interesting after this particular point in July, right? Bitcoin price retraced all of the gains that was seen here, and then it came back to contest the low formed in June, right? And in some cases, as you can see on a weekly time frame, Bitcoin price did produce one weekly low below it. But for the next weekly low, it clearly produced, it clearly went back above the key low, and then it started rallying. So while we're here, I just want you to understand that key lows are very important, right? Once the key low is broken and then Bitcoin price produces a lower high relative to the previous high, the ensuing move could be fatal, right? It could trigger like a massive volatile move to the downside. Let me give you an example, right? So basically this was a key low, right? During an uptrend, Bitcoin price broke this key level. There was a lot of struggle here, here, all the way, right? Any attempts to move back above this key high to produce a higher high were basically shut down. And then Bitcoin price finally closes above it, produces a lower high relative to this high. So all the conditions for a trend reversal have been satisfied. First condition, produce a lower low, done. Second condition, produce a lower high, done. What happened next? Bitcoin price crashed 45%, followed by 62%, and then finally from the bottom after a 66, roughly 67% crash, right? So this is why a key low is very important, right? Right now, there was an attempt to break the key low, but it was a failed attempt. So now Bitcoin price has kickstarted its attempt to produce a higher high. Now, for this attempt to be successful, it needs to continue going higher and then produce a weekly candlestick close above 30.6K, right? What would be even better is if Bitcoin price produces a weekly candlestick close above the key weekly low formed here in 2021, which is at roughly 31,777. So for bulls need to retain above this key low here at 25.9K. And then for them to kind of dominate the market, they have to close above 30.6K. They have to produce a daily weekly candlestick close above 30.6K. So that's what it takes. That's what it needs. That's what bulls need to keep the 2023 rally burning. Bears, on the other hand, it kind of looks like they're already eating, considering that this low was breached here by BTC producing a lower low. And then now this could very well be a lower high relative to this high, right? But there are two ways why I don't believe this is where Bitcoin price has kind of created a lower high. Because this candlestick close was basically kind of like an SFP. It's not a great candlestick close. For example, right? Every time Bitcoin price produced a weekly candlestick close, it was something like this, right? Like here, it did produce a key candlestick close. It spent roughly 2 weeks below this key low, right? And then failed to produce a higher high. What happened next? Bitcoin price crashed, right? And even here, you can see after this candlestick close here, it attempted, failed, and since here, it dropped 21%. And if you look at down to this, it's 23%, right? So each time this has happened, Bitcoin price has crashed violently, right? And the fact that it hasn't done that yet, right? After this candlestick close here, basically Bitcoin price dropped just 4%. So this is nowhere in line with what's happened in the history. So that's one reason why I believe this is not a lower high. I feel like we could potentially go higher, if not all the way up here and produce like a daily candlestick close above these levels here. We might produce a higher high somewhere around here, then come back down. That is a possibility, right? But the first reason why I don't believe that is because of this failed attempt, right? Apart from that, uh, another reason is that I'll get to the second reason in a bit, but for now, the weekly time frame is analysis is we need a decisive close below this red level here at 25.9K for bears to kickstart their downtrend, and we need bulls to kind of rally higher and close above this to show that they're in control. Right, so let's see what's happening on the 3-day time frame. On the 3-day time frame, we've already kickstarted another uptrend here, considering this was the low here, and the 3-day low has not yet been reached. So this is low, high, low, higher low, higher high. This could very well be another higher low, and Bitcoin price produces another higher high over here. That could very well happen. And if you look at the RSI, yes, RSI looks pretty bearish considering that it's failed to close above 50. But the AO on the other hand looks very interesting, right? Because you can see the last time AO kind of went from under zero to closing above zero was this level. What happened over here is that Bitcoin price was also coming down from an oversold condition, and then it kind of failed to go above here, came back down, and once the AO kind of closed above 50, you can see it kind of kickstarted this 2023 rally. I'm not saying we can get a move like this, but looking at the AO and RSI, which is very close to 50, there could be a potential reversal. RSI does something like this and goes up, right? That could very well happen. I'm not saying it will happen, but it could happen. So this is on the 3-day time frame. There is still room for bulls to prove that they're still in control. Now let's get down to the 1-day time frame. On the 1-day time frame, the weekly level has clearly been breached, and there has been no attempt to move further south, right? And as mentioned in the 3 time frame, it's already started producing higher lows and higher highs. We could potentially see another higher high here into the 29.3K, basically retest this resistance over here, right? We could get this on a 1-day time frame. So, and if you look at the RSI, It's come very close to this, right? So the reason I'm expecting this particular move, apart from this price structure here, is that if you look at this price action over here, it's really interesting, right? When price breaks a support level, RSI goes below 50, here comes very close to breaching the zero level, right? Clearly, things are bearish here. But what happens is Bitcoin price recovers, right? Produces higher high relative to this particular high, and goes up. Now we're back at this level here again. Bitcoin price has breached a support level here, and AO is very close to the zero. RSI has breached 50. It looks very similar to what happened here, right? If history repeats, right, then we can get another push into the equilibrium of this particular range here at 28.5K, and then maybe go even higher and collect the liquidity resting above these highs over here. So that is the second reason why I feel like Bitcoin price could still attempt and produce another higher high relative to these smaller highs. So all in all, the the lower time frames are still bullish and could produce another leg up, but the weekly time frame looks a little indecisive at the moment, and it would be better to take a look at it in a few weeks, right? And the last thing that I want to mention here is that the monthly returns for Bitcoin, right? This is very important. If you look at the quarters, right, quarter four is the highest return producing uh, time frame for Bitcoin. In the last 13 years of Bitcoin, quarter four has returned an average of 93.38% gains. So if you just invested in if you look at the quarter three is the most lowest returning asset, lowest returning time frame. So if you buy all the dips in quarter three, then you would have had an average return of 93.38%, right? So that is basically my take, right? And since we're in the quarter four of Bitcoin, quarter four of this year, I feel like there could be like an unexpected move to the upside, right? So if you break this down, right, November is the highest returning month with an average return over the last 13 years of 38%. October, which is the month that we're in right now, has given on an average of 26.79% return. So just by looking at this, right, if this history remains consistent, then we could chop around in October and then shoot up in November. Right, so as I mentioned just a while ago, we might see a lot of struggle in this area, basically in this particular range in this range, right? So in this range, Bitcoin price might stay in this range for quite some time now. And it is until November, right? And then we're already halfway through October. So the end of October and the first half of November could see handsome returns, right? And that could potentially push Bitcoin price up to collect the liquidity around 30K. And that's when the weekly time frame analysis for Bitcoin will come into picture, and we will see if Bitcoin price is going to produce higher high and continue the 2023 rally. But in my opinion, I think the lower time frames are extremely bullish. It's a good time to buy the dip. And from a weekly perspective, you should still be cautious in October. At least like bulls need to be cautious in October, and bears need to kind of have a little bit of patience for the market cycle to resolve completely. So yep, that basically concludes my take on Bitcoin. If you enjoyed this analysis, please make sure to go and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give us a follow on Twitter at FXS Crypto, and give me a follow as well at Mangeko with a zero at the end.